how the assassination of Laurent Kabila was planned, and his last words, why. Laurent-Désiré Kabila's story has always carried the tragic weight of irony. A man who rose from the fringes of Congo's jungles, a revolutionary who once fought side by side with Patrice Lumumba and later against Mobutu Sese Seko, would himself fall victim to betrayal from the very boys he had once called his children of the revolution. The president who dreamed of cleansing the Democratic Republic of Congo of corruption, foreign meddling, and endless war would be killed not by distant enemies, but by those who had once fought under his banner. His assassination on the 16th of January 2001 remains one of Africa's most haunting political killings, not only for the brutality of the act itself, but for the final word he uttered as his life ebbed away. Why? Why did they turn against him? Why did they conspire to silence him in his own palace? Why would boys he had once armed, trusted, and marched with betray him with bullets? The tale of Laurent Kabila's assassination is not only a story of politics and power. It is a story of mistrust, broken promises, bitterness, and a tragic confrontation between a father figure and his estranged children. It is a story of human frailty, suspicion, and the merciless logic of betrayal. The seeds of betrayal, Kabila and his Kadogos. To understand why Kabila was assassinated, we must begin with the Kadogos, the young boys who carried rifles bigger than their thin arms, boys who had fought and bled with Kabila during his march from the east of Congo to Kinshasa in 1997. The word Kadogo in Swahili means small one, but these were no ordinary children. They were soldiers. They had fought against Mobutu's dictatorship under the banner of Kabila's Alliance of Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Congo, AFDL. In 1996, the Kadogos saw Kabila as a father figure, a liberator who gave them purpose, weapons, and a dream of victory. But victory in war often transforms into disillusionment in peace. Once Kabila consolidated power in Kinshasa, the boys found themselves sidelined, unpaid, treated with contempt. They had risked everything for him, but to Kabila, they became pawns, disposable pieces of his expanding authoritarian rule. One Kadogo, Abdul, would later confess to a journalist, open quote, "We knew no one in Kinshasa. All the time we were with Kabila. But he treated us badly. We didn't have salaries. All the money came from him. We were like beggars." Close quote. Their loyalty soured into bitterness, and bitterness, when armed and organized, becomes deadly. Operation Mbongo Zero, a plan to kill the buffalo. In early January 2001, a secret meeting took place in Brazzaville, across the Congo River. A group of Kadogos, disillusioned and furious, drafted a plan. They called it Operation Mbongo Zero. Mbongo, Swahili for buffalo, was a cruel nickname they used for Kabila, mocking his large build. To them, the buffalo had become a symbol of greed and betrayal. The plan was written on 3 unsigned, handwritten pages. It was simple yet audacious. Infiltrate strategic positions in Kinshasa, the presidential palace, national radio and television, and the electricity headquarters. Secure the cooperation of insiders, including disaffected members of Kabila's own presidential guard. Strike from within the palace itself. The plan involved around 75 members of Kabila's palace guard. These were men sworn to protect him. Some would betray him, some would hesitate, and some would die trying to shield him. What drove these young men to such lengths? Was it hunger? Was it humiliation? Or was it the deep psychological wound of betrayal? That the man who once marched with them in the jungles now saw them as expendable. A palace in Paranoia. By late 2000, Kabila was no longer the confident liberator. He was a president under siege, paranoid and ruthless. He had alienated his former allies in Rwanda and Uganda. He had silenced rivals within his own alliance. He had ordered the assassination of Andre Kisasingandu, one of the founding leaders of the AFDL. He had overseen the torture and execution of dozens of Kadogos suspected of disloyalty. Only a day before his death, Kabila watched as 47 Kadogos, boys who had once marched under his command, were executed in Kinshasa. He believed they were plotting against him. Perhaps he thought he was removing threats. In truth, he was sealing his fate. How many of those boys died with bitterness in their hearts, whispering revenge with their last breaths? How many of their friends swore silently that Kabila would not live to see the next month? When power feeds paranoia, leaders forget that repression breeds resistance. Kabila, once the father figure of the revolution had become its cannibal. The day of the assassination. January 16th, 2001. The air in Kinshasa was thick with tension. In the presidential palace, Laurent Kabila sat with his economic advisor, Émile Mota, discussing an upcoming summit with France. He hoped this meeting would shore up his fragile regime. Outside, a group of young men, his guards, his Kadogos, were making final moves of Operation Bongo Zero. Among them was Rachidi Mizele, a trusted bodyguard, and Kasareka, another former child soldier turned assassin. Kasareka was overheard declaring, open quote, "I will kill him." Close quote. Was it bravado? Was it conviction? Or was it the bitter cry of a boy who felt abandoned by the man he once trusted as a father? At 1:45 p.m., the assassin entered Kabila's office. He bent over as if to whisper something into the president's ear. Laurent Kabila, believing his guard wanted to share a confidential word, leaned forward. And then, the betrayal. The assassin pulled out a revolver and fired 4 bullets into Kabila's abdomen. The president gasped, staggered, and fell. His blood spread across the polished floor of his palace. Shock gripped the room. The last word. Why? Witnesses say that as life drained from him, Laurent Kabila whispered a single word, pourquoi? Why? A question that would echo across the Congo, across Africa, across history. Why would his own boys turn against him? Why did his revolution devour its children? Why had the liberator become the victim? That one word was not merely a question to his assassin. It was a question to destiny itself. The chaos after the shots, panic engulfed the palace. Bodyguards rushed in. Gunfire erupted. Rachidi, the bodyguard believed to have pulled the trigger, tried to flee. He was shot in the leg, then finished off with 2 more bullets by fellow guards. But confusion remained. Was Rachidi truly the triggerman, or had the real killer escaped amid the chaos? Former Health Minister Leonard Mashako Mamba was nearby and rushed into the office moments after the shots. Mwenze Kongolo, waiting at the gates, heard the gunfire and froze in disbelief. For 15 minutes, Kabila lay bleeding before being placed in a helicopter to a clinic in Gombe. He fought for his life, but his wounds were grave. By evening, a curfew was declared in Kinshasa. After 8 hours, his body was transported under heavy escort to Njili Airport and flown to Harare, Zimbabwe. On the 18th of January 2001 at 10 a.m., Laurent Kabila was officially declared dead. The blame game. Who really killed Kabila? The assassination unleashed a storm of accusations and speculation. Some blamed Rwanda and Uganda, accusing them of orchestrating the plot through disgruntled Kadogos. Others believed it was an inside job led by Kabila's closest aides who feared his paranoia and erratic rule. Some whispered about foreign intelligence services, Western powers frustrated by Kabila's obstruction of peace talks and his resistance to foreign influence. Others dismissed the grand theories, insisting it was simply the desperate act of unpaid bitter soldiers. An inquiry led by Attorney General Luhange Kabinda concluded that the assassination was part of a larger coup attempt. He accused Congo's external enemies of fueling the plot. Rwanda denied the charges, calling them outlandish. But amid the swirl of theories, one truth remained undeniable. Kabila was killed by those who were once closest to him. Human reactions. A nation in shock. Kinshasa wept, but it also whispered. Some mourned sincerely. They had believed in the liberator who toppled Mobutu. Others felt a grim sense of relief, seeing Kabila's death as inevitable, the fall of a man who betrayed his own promises. In the streets, there was confusion. Was Joseph Kabila, his son, alive? Some rumors claimed he had also been killed. Others whispered that he was the chosen successor. In Harare, his body lay in a morgue, while Congo's government insisted he was alive. Denial, grief, fear, all swirled together in those chaotic days. The Congolese people, weary from decades of dictatorship and war, were left asking themselves, had another cycle of betrayal just begun? Legacy of a tragic death. Laurent Kabila's assassination was more than a personal tragedy. It was a symptom of Congo's deeper wounds. The mistrust between leaders and soldiers. The manipulation of child soldiers turned into instruments of war and betrayal. The endless interference of foreign powers in Congo's affairs. His last word, why, still haunts Congo. Why do its leaders rise and fall through violence? Why do its revolutions devour their children? Why is peace always out of reach? Joseph Kabila, only 29 years old, would inherit the presidency. His rule would last nearly 2 decades, marked by its own controversies. But the shadow of his father's bloody end never left him. Conclusion.